Microphone check 1 2. Microphone check 1 2. Microphone check 1 2. Microphone check 1 2. Microphone check. Microphone check 1 2. Microphone check 1 2. I don't think that is. Microphone. Microphone check 1 2. Microphone check. Are you guys hearing me out there? We're having a little technical difficulty rather with our sound system. Can you guys hear us? Can somebody text back whether they're hearing us or not? Lois, are you hearing anything? Okay, good. All right. All right, so we are running late. We are really behind. We had some crazy technical difficulties right there with our sound system. And so we were kind of working that through. Please, you guys know this is technology. And the truth about it is that technology always carries some issues with it. So we're going to extend the Bible class a little longer this afternoon. By about at least an hour, half an hour to an hour more, so that we can get what we needed to get in. So sorry about that. We appreciate your patience and your time and effort. By the way, welcome to Words from the Cross Bible Study, brought to you by Grace Advent Ministry, located here in Lilburn, Georgia. Please tell your friends we're on the air. Tell the church. Listen, text somebody, let them know we have an awesome Bible study prepared for you guys, and you need to come on board. Remember, this Bible study seeks to deal with the emotional, the spiritual, the psychological aspect, and the sociological aspect of our living together. So we're not here to spiritualize things. We're here to bring out the truth of the Word of God and use the Word of God to see how we can define our relationships and help our relationships to be better. Lois, give them the topic of our Bible study this afternoon. She's going to give you that topic, and we're going to get going, all right? Sorry about that, guys. I know that might have been a deterrence to some people, but hang in there. We are coming. Thank you for hanging out with us, all right? Okay, so what topic we have up there for them today? We're talking about the house of Saul and the house of David today, and to see how we can use 2 Samuel chapter 9. If you have your Bibles, please turn to 2 Samuel chapter 9. Lois, could you bring my phone over here? I think it's up there, please. 2 Samuel chapter 9, and we're going to be reading from verse 1 through, I think, 13. And then we're going to use that as a basis for the Bible study. Please hang with me. We're going to be all right. You guys ain't got nowhere to go anyway, right? So you ain't got nowhere to go. So you're going to stay with me today. Okay? Awesome. All right. So turn to 2 Samuel chapter 9. All right, 2 Samuel chapter 9. Again, we apologize for the delay, but my friend, we are dealing with technology. 2 Samuel chapter 9, and let me read for you. Normally, I would have my wife read it from the NLT. I think I'm going to do that because I read it from the NIV this morning, and I want you to get kind of a well-rounded idea, a well-rounded reading of the text. Okay, so I'm going to ask her. It's up there. I'm going to ask her to read from 2 Samuel chapter 9, verses 1 through 13 from the NLT version. Because this morning I did it from the NIV, and I think when you read it from different versions, you kind of get a more well-rounded verse feeling about it. So go ahead, Lois. Read from that, and then we'll kick it off.
Second Samuel chapter 9, starting at verse 1.
Yes.
One day David asked, "Is anyone in Saul's family still alive? Anyone to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake?" He summoned a man named Ziba, who had been one of Saul's servants. "Are you Ziba?" the king asked. "Yes, sir, I am," Ziba replied. The king then asked him, "Is anyone still alive from Saul's family? If so, I want to show God's kindness to them." Ziba replied, "Yes, one of Jonathan's sons is still alive. He is crippled in both feet." "Where is he?" the king asked. "In Lo-debar," Ziba told him, "at the home of Machir, I don't know how you say
That's
it,
correct.
son of Amiel. So David sent for him and brought him from Machir's home. His name was Mephibosheth. He was Jonathan's son and Saul's grandson. When he came to David, he bowed low to the ground in deep respect. David said, "Greetings, Mephibosheth." Mephibosheth replied, "I am your servant." "Don't be afraid," David said. "I intend to show kindness to you because of my promise to your father Jonathan. I will give you all the property that once belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will eat here with me at the king's table." Mephibosheth bowed respectfully and exclaimed, "Who is your servant that you should show such kindness to a dead dog like me?" Then the king summoned Saul's servant Ziba and said, "I have given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. You and your sons and servants are to farm the land for him to produce food for your master's household. But Mephibosheth, your master's grandson, will eat here at my table." Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Ziba replied, "Yes, my lord the king, I am your servant, and I will do all that you have commanded." And from that time on, Mephibosheth ate regularly at David's table, like one of the king's own sons. Mephibosheth had a young son named Micah. From then on, all the members of Ziba's household were Mephibosheth's servants. And Mephibosheth, who was crippled in both feet, lived in Jerusalem and ate regularly at the king's table.
Okay. Now, let's get some context here now. One thing we need to know is that, and you could put up this text for them, 2 Samuel chapter 3 verse 1 says this: "That was the beginning of a long war between those who were loyal to Saul and those who were loyal to David. As time passed, David became stronger and stronger, while Saul's dynasty became weaker and weaker." When you read that from the NIV, I just want you all to stick with me. We're going somewhere. The war between the house of Saul and the house of David lasted a long time. David grew stronger and stronger, while the house of Saul grew weaker and weaker. So what we learn from biblical history is that Saul, the house of Saul and the house of David, was at war for a very, very long time. We all know the story until eventually we discussed that this morning, that both of them died, both Saul and who? And his son Jonathan. And as a result, David ascended to the throne. We understand that. I mean, most of you are student of the Bible, so you know the war between the house of David and the house of Saul went on for more than, I would say, 20 years. I mean, it was crazy, the rift between David and Saul. But in the midst of it, we had Jonathan, who was a very close friend to David. He was an ally. We'll call him, just like how Britain is an ally, Canada is an ally to the United States. Jonathan was an ally of Saul on the ground while this war was going on. And so we know that Jonathan and Saul made a what? A pact, a promise, a covenant that if anything happens to Jonathan and the house of Saul, that David would take care of the house of Saul. And that is exactly what happened. But before Jonathan died, it seemed like he had a son by the name of who? Mephibosheth. Now, Mephibosheth, as we discussed this morning, was 5 years old, 5 years old, when the news came that Saul and Jonathan had what? Been killed. And the Bible says the nurse, upon hearing the news, because it was customary in those days that when a new king take over, they will wipe out the family of the what? Old king, so that it doesn't foster any kind of insurrection or what? Rebellion. So upon hearing that, we know that the nurse took the little 5-year-old Mephibosheth and was running with him. He fell out of her hands and what? And she tripped, he fell out of her hands, and he fell right on his feet, and it shattered. Biblical scholars believe that his whole spine was shattered because of the fall, and so therefore he could not walk. We know that, and when he could not walk, he was handicapped, and so we know that he was living in a place called what? What does the Bible say? He was living in a place called Lodebar for a long time in the house of Makir, Makir. So he was living away for a long time. He's crippled. No doubt the nurse that was there that he fell out of her hands could have been there with him, but he was underground. He was hiding for fear of his life. All right, so that's a little helter-skelter backdrop of the life of Mephibosheth. All right, so now we come to the fact that David is on the throne. He's on the throne, rather, and he's seeking somebody from the house of Saul to do what? To fulfill his covenant with who? Jonathan. And we know that there was a man by the name of what? Ziba, who came to David, and David asked him, is there anybody from the household of Saul that I can show what? Kindness. And Ziba told him that there was a son that David did not know about, by the way. David did not know that Jonathan had a son by the name of Mephibosheth. David knew this exactly when he asked if there's anybody left from the house of Saul. Because in David's mind, Lois, David is believing that everybody from the house of Saul is essentially what? Wiped out. So he's getting news for the first time that there is somebody from the house of Saul. So therefore, he can fulfill that covenant with David, with John, that he shared with Jonathan by, giving his heir or inviting his son to come over. At this time, David doesn't know that Mephibosheth is what? Crippled. He's learning that he has a son for the first time. He's learning that his son is crippled for the first time. He's getting information from Ziba, and he's inquiring where Mephibosheth lives, and he's sending Ziba to go and get him and bring him so that he can show some kindness to the house of Saul. That's the backdrop. All right. So with that said in mind, okay, now let me also say this. We know that David went through a lot with who? With Saul. We know that. 1 Samuel chapter 18 verse 10 tells us this, and I think Lois will put that up there. It tells us this. Now it came about on the next day that an evil spirit from God came mightily upon who? Saul. And he what? Raved in the midst of the house while David was playing the harp with his hand as usual, right? And the spear was in Saul's hand. And we know that Saul did what? Herald that what? Spear at David. So David went through a lot with Saul. I mean, when I tell you that David went through a lot with Saul, he did. He went through a lot with Saul. But now Saul is dead. He finds that Jonathan has a son, and now he's ready to pay up with some kindness. Now, so I got some questions based on, questions that I want to go through that I think is going to help us as the body of Christ in our relationship, personal and emotional and romantic and sexual relationship with each other. Remember, I told you that this program, in terms of its Bible study, explore the socio-sexual, socio-emotional, socio-psychological aspect of the believer, all right? And so we use the Bible to kind of draw out stuff that can help you in your everyday relationship with your man, your girl, your boyfriend, whosoever it is. We kind of work it so that you can understand some basic issues and some basic ways in terms of relationship with each other. So I'm going to ask some series of questions. So the first question is this. We know that the Bible says that David wanted to show kindness to Jonathan, to Mephibosheth, because of Jonathan's sake. We read that in 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 9. David said, asks, is there anyone still left in the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness? So the word kindness appears in what? In the text. My question is, why is it so difficult to show kindness in relationships today? There's a lot of relationships that are existing without kindness. There's a lot of males, a lot of females who bark at each other. Kindness. Here is David says, here is David recognizing the importance of what? Kindness. So God wants us to recognize the importance of kindness in our relationships, yet still we have some relationships that is malnourished where kindness is concerned. Nobody is kind to each other. Both spouses are treating each other rough. Here it is that David is underlining the centrality of kindness. So my question is, and you guys need to hit me up as we're talking now, all right? I'm looking forward to it now. Why is it so difficult for people to be kind to each other in relationships? What is it that pisses people off so much, if I could use that word, because, hey, we're keeping it real with you. Why are people so easily pissed off and not able to show kindness to each other? And by the way, should David even bother to show kindness to Jonathan's son based on what his grandfather, Jonathan's father, Mephibosheth's grandfather, did to David? Is it important for David here to show kindness? Why? Why should David show kindness to this guy after he had been through so much with one of his family member? I would want to think that David wanted to just say, listen, man, I've been through too much with you guys. I'm not trying to do anything here. But yet still we see David showing kindness long after. Think about this. Long after Jonathan is what? Is dead. He doesn't have to do it. But why is he doing it? Is David really a different type of man right now? Are we looking at a different type of man? Or is it just all about God here? Or is it just this is the way David is? And on top of that, why is it so difficult for couples to show kindness? Like for a husband to be kind. What's going on in relationships today? I see a lot of relationships today that there's no kindness in this. All that is shown is, Also, Elder Brown says unresolved issues. Yes. So there goes Lois. One, I think a lot of time, very good. That's what I was thinking, Lois. A lot of times why people are unable to show kindness is because they themselves are are dealing with a lot of unresolved issues. And those unresolved issues prohibits them to be kind. That could be one answer.
And then also the differences in personalities is a huge one when, you don't allow the other person to be themselves. You see them in a certain light, And so you expect them to behave a certain way. And when they don't, that's when a lot of resentment pops up in relationships. And so people forget the basics in
Right.
relationships, and that's kindness,
Right.
So a lot of self comes into it, and it causes a lot of bad feelings and resentment, and just to the point sometimes where hate comes in.
Right.
And then to the point where David, I think because of his relationship with Jonathan, he had a brotherly relationship with him, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
He had the problem with his father, Saul, but he loved
Right.
Jonathan.
Right.
And so I think he just wanted to remember his love for Jonathan, and that's why he asked, is there
Okay.
anyone left?
And one of the things I believe that too, Avril says that this too, showing kindness is what Jesus would have us do. Great. Because she said we are his disciples. And she said in relation to the question about David and showing kindness to Mephibosheth. One thing I want you to all understand too is that David comes from a legacy of kindness, by the way. And Lois, let's take this thing way back. Remember that David grandparents are who? Ruth and who? Boaz and
Boaz.
who? Yes. Boaz and remember you have here is the line. Boaz, Ruth. Remember that Boaz was very kind to who? Ruth.
Yeah.
So you see what I'm saying?
it's in
Sometimes
his
kindness is
DNA.
generational, right?
Yeah.
So David is coming from a long line of people who are kind. Remember how his grandparents, his great-grandparents treated his great-grandfather, which is Boaz, right? Treated Ruth. He treated her with what? Kindness. So we see, we see that he comes from a long line of what? People who are kind. Yeah, because his great grandparents, when you think about Ruth, how she was to Naomi, right? She was very, very kind to Naomi when you think about that. And how she was very receptive to Naomi in spite of all that happened. You think about Boaz, who went out of his way to make sure that Ruth was okay. So I think that kindness is also generational too. And there's some generational kindness here that is hitting the structure and the life of David. Does that make sense? So I think, I think Avril and Elder Brown is hitting two great points. They're talking also about God would have us to be kind to each other. Elder Brown is saying, listen, sometimes in relationships, we come from the past with what? Unresolved issues. People can come from a past where they didn't see their parents being what? Kind to each other. A lot of people come in relationships not witnessing kindness in their family. They witness all types of what? Disruption and curse and malice and getting back at each other. All right? And so Juliet says that Lewis said David valued his relationship with Jonathan. They were loyal and they loved each other as brothers. Yes, and I'm saying all what y'all are saying there, and I'm saying on top of that, that is coming from somewhere in terms of David's lineage. He came from a line of people who are very what? Loving. Okay? Look at Abigail. Look at those people whom Jesse, right? Look at Jesse. I mean, look at these folks, Jesse used to send his sons out to, that's his
Check
father.
on him,
to give their brother food. And so he's in a legacy. He's coming from a legacy of kindness. And I'm telling you, I'm linking that together. But all of you are right so far. Avril is right in saying that Avril is right when she raised the issue that Jesus would have us be kind to each other. Elder Brown is right when he raised the issues of unresolved issues can affect how people are kind in relationships, if they have issues that has not been resolved in terms of childhood and adulthood, they're not going to be kind. This is why some marriages are very harsh, you know. Also, and yeah, Avril says his relationship with Jonathan is a prime example of good brotherly love, you know. And then Jonathan also showed kindness to David when Saul was pursuing him. So there's a lot of There's a lot of moving parts here that we can discuss about kindness. But I think overall we should say, Lois, that every relationship should have a great level of kindness.
Absolutely.
People should be kind to each other. You should be kind to your spouse. You know, the Bible makes it clear that we ought to be what? Kind to one another. Yeah, the
Yes.
Bible makes that very clear, that we should be what? Kind to one another. Is there a question?
Yeah, there's a comment.
Yeah?
Jonathan showed kindness to David when Saul was pursuing him.
Yes. Yes. Yes, he did. He did. He did. He sure did. He showed a lot of kindness to him by, you know, not allowing his father to, you know, to hurt him. You know what I mean? You know, Ephesians chapter 4, by the way, and 32 said, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, right? Just as Christ forgave you. So we ought to show kindness to each other. And we know that Jonathan is a prime example of showing kindness to David. Jonathan is an example of Ephesians chapter 4, verse 32. When you value other people, or when you value the other person that you are in a relationship with, you will always show kindness to that person. Yeah.
Beautiful.
If you really value me, then show me, you know, you'll be kind to me. If you always is rough with me, you know what I mean, talk down to me, you're not showing me what? Kindness. You know, that's why people get frustrated, because, you know, every time they approach you, you rough them up, you speak unkind words, and that can chase people away. So I like how the text, Lord, starts out with the idea of kindness. Whom can I show kindness to? God wants us to be what?
And it says for Jonathan's sake. It didn't say Paul. What's his name? Saul.
Saul, yes. So, well, that raises another question. I mean, if it was for Saul's sake, I would show no kindness.
No, he would not.
So then it begs the question, in relationships, are there times when we will just not show kindness because of who we have interacted with and the way that person, the impact that person have had on us, and so we're just not going to show kindness to that person's family, nor friends, nor children? You understand what I'm saying? He's asking specifically to show kindness to who? Jonathan's house.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that,
I mean, it says in Saul's family who is still alive.
right.
You
But
know,
he's not really interested
really
in
for
Jonathan.
You know,
he's not
he went a
interested
little
with
further.
anything on Saul's side.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's interested on Jonathan's side. So it shows that, you know, sometimes you've got to, you know, people won't be nice to people because of the experience they have had with your, with people, you know. They're not going to be nice to you. You know, that's why it's important to be nice to people, to be kind to people at all times. All right. We can circle around that wagon again. We'll definitely come back to that. All right. Why is it important to keep our promise? Another thing we learned that in the text, when David says, is there anyone in the house of Saul who I can show kindness with? This morning we made the point that Jonathan kept his what? His promise, right? He kept his promise, right? Okay, I'm not on, but Saul was his what? I'm not getting this one. Can you expound?
Being unkind is not of God, uncharacteristic. And then
Right.
it is only human to be guarded after being hurt.
Yeah, I think so. That's what I'm saying. It's only human not to want to be.
But Saul was his.
You understand what I'm saying? It's only human to to refuse from getting involved with people who have what? who have hurt you. Juliet, please finish that statement. I'm not
We're
getting
not
it.
sure what the abbreviation
Abbreviation
means.
Yeah, all right.
Oh, father-in-law.
Father-in-law. Okay, I gotta learn a new one. All right. Thanks, Avril. All right, so yeah, Avril, it's only human to be guarded after being hurt. So yeah,
Oh, yeah.
there are times when you're just not gonna be bothered with the person to show any kindness to somebody who hurt you. And that leads me to the question, do you go out of your way and be unguarded and show kindness to somebody who have hurt you? Avril said we're only human, and sometimes we're not gonna wanna do it. We're not going to want to do it because all we think about is the way the person have what? Hurt us before. Yeah. And so we are guarded. I agree with you, Avril. We are guarded and we're not going to get involved with that person. So yeah, so that's kindness. What about promises? In a relationship, is it important to keep our promises?
Oh, yes.
How important it is to keep our promises in a relationship. Because here we have Jonathan keeping his what?
Promise.
I mean, David
David,
keeping his promise,
To
right?
Jonathan.
She said being guarded does not mean we have to be unkind. But sometimes being guarded means we have to be unkind because we're being guarded. Can
He's
you
not
be
being unkind? He's just not dealing with Saul and the things of Saul.
I'm interested in how can a person be guarded and be kind at the same time? If Avril could help us with that. How can you be guarded and be kind at the same time? If David was guarded, how could he be kind? Because when you're guarded, you're more nursing what? Oh, guarded as in careful. Okay. So do you think that David was being guarded? You think that David had a level of just being guarded here in this case? Do you think that David was skeptical? Do you think that he's entering on and showing this person's kindness with being a little bit skeptical of what the outcome could be?
And that's why he asked the servant all those questions. He inquired. He wanted to know more.
Good. Yeah.
He wanted to know what he was going to get himself into.
So there, Elder Brown asks, where does forgiveness fits into all of this? And that's a good question. And I'm not sure that it fits. I'm not sure it fits into this because there is nobody here for him to do what? Forgive, because those who has really hurt him, the one who has really hurt him has what? Has died, right? She is dead. But also remember that he's also dealing with his first wife, right? Who is Saul's what? Daughter. Remember, Saul's daughter is David's what? First wife. Remember that Saul, oh come on, y'all gotta remember last week we studied this. We studied last week that
not Abigail.
Saul gave
Michael.
Yeah. His daughter to David. So but it's interesting that David is asking for somebody from the house of Saul to show kindness with. His wife is from the house of Saul. Okay?
Oh.
Yeah, his wife is from the house of Saul. So, yeah, Michael, that's her name. Yeah, but she's from the house of Saul. Okay, so maybe somebody can help us with that. I'm not saying I'm raising any issue. Where does forgiveness fits into all of this? I think that forgiveness fits into all of this is that David had to forgive Saul, really forgive him, to be able to focus on Mephibosheth. I believe so. I think that David had to have some level of thinking in his mind that I'm not going to think about what Saul did to me and let that affect what I need to be to Mephibosheth. I'm going to try and focus on Jonathan. So I believe that David had to put aside mentally, right, and emotionally and morally what Saul did to him to focus on, you understand what I'm saying? to focus on, I'm coming to that, elder, to focus on Mephibosheth. So speaking about relationships, where does all of this fit, forgiveness fit into relationships? So Edward says, Smith says, forgiveness requires only one person. Reconciliation requires two or more. Okay? So forgiveness, so say some more on that, elder. Say some more of that. And Elder Brown is talking about where does forgiveness come in a relationship? I think in every relationship, Lois, forgiveness must be a huge part of the equation, because everybody comes to the relationship flawed, fundamentally flawed, and they're going to do things that is going to at times hurt the other. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And so everybody have to position ourselves, or everybody have to position themselves at the corner of forgiveness and acceptance. You see what I'm saying? We have to position ourselves. So Elder Brown, I would say that forgiveness plays a huge role in relationships. And without it, relationships cannot survive at all. Because we have to think about the fact that the reason why our relationships survive with God or Jesus is because Jesus is able to put aside what we have done to him or we have done as sinners to constantly entertain us as what? Children whom he loves. So forgiveness is a huge part of relationship. And yes, Avril, it is ongoing at all times. It is. There's not a time when you cannot think about forgiveness, because every day God thinks about, you know, his love forgives you. So yeah, Elder, I think forgiveness requires only...
I think it requires both parties. The person who did you wrong has to be aware of what he has done to you. So
Okay.
I believe forgiveness does include more than one person.
So forgiveness includes more than one person.
I think so.
Yeah, because, well, I mean, that's a good observation, because if somebody hurt you and you forgive them, or you have to forgive them, because if it's one-sided, there is no accountability.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm sure Eddie's going to chime in with that. But forgiveness is a lot of times about the individual who has been hurt, though. I get that. And sometimes it's not really about, in a psychological way, the person who have hurt you, because if you continue to harbor that hurt and pain, it messes you up.
Right.
And if you can't let that go,
I
then
get
you are the
that
one who is
part.
at risk to be, you know what I mean, to become an endangered species. So forgiveness is a lot about you and not the other person.
But
You see what I'm
the
saying?
other person needs to know what they have done to you so that they will not make that mistake again. Because
Right.
if they constantly put you down in public,
Right.
let's use that for an example,
Right.
and they say derogatory things in public, and you just keep it to yourself, you don't go to that person and say, hey, brother, you keep saying this, I really don't appreciate it. That person will never know that they are offending you.
That's correct. I believe the offender, the offendee must know that he has offended.
Right.
But you have to deal with that you have to wrestle with forgiveness too on your own, and don't let it fester within you. So I think there are two sides to the coin. Yes, the offender has to know that, the one who's doing the offending must know that he has offended, and the one who has been offended must know that they cannot harbor the hate and the hurt, because they become endangered in doing so. All right, but the person needs to know how they hurt you, yes, and that's what Lois said. I agree. You have to tell the person. The Bible makes that clear, that you have to go to the person and let them know what they have done. And once you do that, you clear your conscience. They must deal with the fact that they have ways that hurt people.
That's where the reconciliation comes in now for the other person.
Exactly. And I think that's what Eddie's saying.
Yeah.
It takes now reconciliation when the person has recognized
That
the
they've
fact they have
done
hurt,
wrong.
then
Yes.
then it leads to some sort of reconciliation. All right. So what is it important to keep promises in relationships?
Oh, yes.
What role does promises play? Can we break promises in relationships and it's okay? Do it, on and off.
I mean, you use Jesus as an example. He keeps his promises to us.
Right.
And so that's the biggest example that we can have.
Right.
In relationships. It is important for us to keep our promises.
Right.
You know,
Because people really get ticked off when you say you're going to do things
and you don't
do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of women get dissatisfied with men, and a lot of men get dissatisfied with women. A lot of women promise to kick it up a notch when they get in the relationship. Oh, I'm going to dress half naked. I'm going to let my hair down. You can see it every single night when we go to bed. I'm not going to tie up my head like a granny. I'm going to be really smooth.
Right.
And then when you get into the relationship, those promises are broken. I'm going to do things that's going to spice up the relationship. I'm going to go to, what's that place that they sell lingerie? Victoria's Secret. I'm going to pick up stuff that's going to blow your mind. Guess what? I'm going to go get my education. I promise you. You know what I mean? I'm going to get a job earning 6 figures, and it never happens, right? And it really destroys, it erodes trust. You know that when you break your promise, it can erode trust. People don't trust you when you don't keep your promise, right? A promise is keeping your word, isn't it right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you hurt someone and they forgive you, it tends to make you examine yourself. Yes. Very true. Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah, how about, Edward Smith says forgiveness is about you and not the other person. Yeah, give him a love thing. It's a love thing. It's a love thing. Yeah. Forgiveness is about you and not the other person. Reconciliation is about both the other person, all right, and you. Yeah. In order for you to reconcile, the other person must agree with reconciling. Forgiveness is about you letting go of the offense. Yes, the person is not going to always be available for you to speak to. Nevertheless, you must release the burden you are carrying. Give him a hand clap. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hold on, I have to figure out which one is the hand clap
Okay.
again.
In the meantime, tell me when you're ready. All right? So, yeah, we got that.
Applause.
Good, yeah. All right, now, Avril says, how about promise you that they're going to have a 6-pack? Yeah, I mean, as simple as how you hear that is, it's important to understand that, listen, hey, don't promise me stuff outside of the relationship and marriage. And when you promise me those things, we get inside of marriage, you become lackadaisical, and you don't fulfill that. That's a turn off. That is a turn off. I'm serious about that. A lot of relationships are struggling because promises were not what? Kept. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it happens on both. It happens with both what? Male and female. You know what I mean? It really does. It happens to male and female. We must, when we make a promise, we must do what? Keep it. Here it is that David is doing what? Keeping his promises to Jonathan. And listen, here's the shocker. Jonathan is dead. So guess what? I really don't have to keep this promise because he's not going to know whether or not I kept the promise or not, right? He's not going to know. But you could see that this guy is a guy of what? Integrity.
Yeah.
He's decent. He keeps the promise regardless of the fact that his friend is deceased. He said he'll do it, and he did it. In relationships, we've got to do what we say we're going to do. And don't tell people you're going to do something and you don't do it, because it really, really annoys people. It annoys women. It annoys men. We have to do what we say we're going to do. Yeah, Avril, I believe that. The 6-pack, the Coca-Cola bottle shape. I hate to make it seem so physical, but yeah, relationship a lot is about what? Physicality, right? It's male and female kind of coming together, and that physical aspect of it becomes tantamount at times in the relationship. Yes, so David makes promises. Avril, Mark, we can give 1 pack that has 6 components in it. Okay, we can give 6. We can give 1 pack that has 6 components in it. I'll take that. Give him some love thing. I'll take that. All right, so that's true. All right. Why did I have a couple more questions? We got a little way to go, so I want to get some of these questions. Why did David feel obligated to help Jonathan's family after that family have put him through so much hell? Why did David feel so obligated to help Mephibosheth, or to even honor his agreement with Jonathan when the family has put him through so much hell? And here's why I'm saying this. A lot of times we're in relationships, Lois, where the family of the other person has put us through hell. Like the mother-in-law. You know, the monster-in-law, or the monster father, or the monster aunt or nephew. Sometimes we get in a family situation where that family has put us through hell. Why do we turn around and help somebody else put us through hell? And I know we're going to say God says do it, but we're human beings. I mean, David was put through hell by, Jonathan's father. Why is he feeling obligated to help out Jonathan? I know we already established that he made a covenant and all those things, but it's really hard to help people who have really, you know what I mean?
Well, Avril commented on what I was going to say. It goes back to his love for Jonathan.
Right.
I think that's the number one
reason why he's doing it.
Why he felt obligated to Jonathan.
So the reason why I help, your family then, Lois, is because of my love for you.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Loyalty, yeah, it's not loyalty to the family, it's loyalty to loyalty
and you
to
have
who?
Grown to love
It's
them
whom you have
too.
grown to love. And so, yeah, Lois, I use that because I'm trying to make a point here.
I know.
And the point is very germane. A lot of times couples are involved with each other and one couple cannot stand the family. You know, don't want to go around them, don't want to go and cut the grass, don't want to help them, all because they put them through hell. But the idea here is this, is who you have grown to love. Right. You help that family because of the love you have for the person whom you are cohabitating with. And that love overpowers. Yeah, you're right. I've got to love you guys because I love your sister and because I love her pretty much. And I love you guys too, just by knowing you guys, by the way. Some families are easy to love. Some families are really hard to love. You have a comment, Lois? Mm-mm. Yeah, you got to love us. I agree. Sometimes you got to love. You know, his loyalty. My loyalty to you, Lois. My loyalty to this idea of my love for you, you know. How much, if I love you, I'm going to love your family. It's that important. Another thing, Lois, we have to talk about is people who come into relationships who have other children and don't have it by their spouse. And they're coming into that relationship with a child or two. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the male or the female finds it difficult to love the offspring of the spouse, right? And that creates some tension. And a lot of couples are facing that today. A lot of marriages are breaking up because of the spouse unable to love the children that are, from the other spouse that is not his. You not only married Lois, you married into the family. Great, yes. All right, Juliet, thanks for letting me know that. Yeah, you have an obligation to love the family. We do have an obligation to go beyond the love of the person and love the family because, believe it or not, you not just married a person, but you have married the family. There's a word that binds family together. That word is covenant. Covenant. I agree. And when you make a covenant with your spouse, you have made a covenant with their family to love and to cherish in sickness and in health for better. For it's a covenant that extends beyond the marital boundaries. Am I correct, Lois? Mm-hmm. It goes far beyond those boundaries. Good word, Elder. All right. So why did David feel obligated to help the Jonathan's family? We totally hit that on the head. Next one is listen. Here's something that I think is germane to Lois. If my spouse hurts me, Why should I show kindness or feel obligated to help my spouse? Edward, I want you to chime in on this one. This question, when I was writing it, I was thinking about you because I've heard you sometimes deal on this. And the question is, Edward, if my spouse hurts me real bad, why should I show kindness or feel obligated to turn around and help my spouse when she just finished hurt me, or she has hurt me 4 weeks ago, or there's a continued pattern of hurt that she will not acknowledge, right? So let me read what he said. It is impossible for you to love your spouse, yes, dislike their children. Yes, I agree with that. If you do not love your spouse, and don't love their children, you don't love the spouse.
Right.
Because the children is an extension of the spouse. So yeah, Edward, I want to hear you on this one, and because a lot of times, Eddie, I find that in relationships, when there's a heated debate and somebody, hurts somebody by word or deed, sometimes the other spouse refuse to show any kindness to the other spouse because of or help the other spouse, because they, at that point, when hurt sets in, obligation is released. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The moment I get hurt, my obligation to help you is done. And a lot of male and female approach relationship that way. If you don't hurt me, I'll help you. But if you hurt me, I'm done with you, bro. I'm out. I'm keeping it 100. We ain't got nothing to talk about because you just hurt me. Why should my spouse hurt me, and then I feel obligated to show kindness to her and help her or him in a moment when they need help? What's the deal with that? Can we work with that kind of situation, and how does that look, being that we're human beings? How am I gonna really help, try to help you when you just finished hurt me? You know what I mean? And I see some of that in David. He's just been through this bitter stuff, and now he's helping without, the obligation is I gotta help. You know what I mean? So yeah, I need some comment. Okay, so I need some comment to that. If my spouse hurts me, why should I show kindness or feel obligated to help them in a moment of their need? Why? When they just finished hurt me.
He responded.
Yeah, okay. It says, he said, for the same reason we hurt Christ, yet still Christ turned around and cover you. God says that I must love as he what? I love as he loved. I must show kindness not because of, but in spite of. I like that. We must show kindness, and that's why I saved this question for you, buddy. Believe me, we must show love and kindness not because of. So in other words, I think he's saying when you show it because of, it becomes conditional. Am I correct? But when you show it in spite of, it becomes what? Unconditional. Beautiful, beautiful. Is the spouse aware of the problem? I believe if a spouse knowingly continue to hurt the other, love does not exist.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a really heavy one. Oh, wow. Blow it up. I believe, and I agree with Avril, if a spouse continue to hurt the person, knowing that this hurts the person, that spouse is not in the space of loving the person. Derek says it's called true what? Love. And that's in response, Lois, to in spite, because of, and in spite of, as opposed to in spite of. Unconditional, as in terms of unconditional. All right, yeah, Avril, is the spouse aware? Is the spouse aware of the problem? I believe if the spouse knowingly continue to hurt the other, love does not exist. I agree. And so that leads me to this, Lois, to say, if you know somebody is hurting you, tell them about it. You have an obligation to say it to them. Yes. Because sometimes Avril bring up a real good point, Lois, that the spouse sometimes doesn't know that they're doing it to hurt you.
Yeah.
because they're doing stuff out of the best of their knowledge.
And it could be how they were raised. You know, a
Right.
lot of it, we forget that you were raised differently than your spouse.
Right.
And so certain things you would do, they would not do, and vice versa.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do agree with Avril on that, though, Lois, that if they know, though, and after you have pointed out to them,
You have to point it out.
yeah, and
Yes.
I think so, Lois. I think if somebody's hurting you, you have to say it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people don't say things, and they exist, they love in,
They expect the person
to
to
know that
by
they're doing it.
osmosis. I don't know.
Yes. So you got to say it,
Yeah.
Avril. Yeah. So Avril raised a very important issue. Ellie says it's important that if someone is dating someone with children, they should spend time with the children as well. That's a good as well before they say I do.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, this right here, give Ellie a hand clap right now. Give him one. That right here, Lois, is some serious butter on the bread. Because a lot of times we rush into relationships and we X out the children from, that the spouse is bringing into what? The relationship. We don't get involved with them because we're so much gung-ho on smashing, you know what I mean? We're so much gung-ho on smashing and getting in bed with this person or loving this person. And we're professing our love to them all over the globe. And we tend to forget the children and the offspring of that person. Extremely important, Elder. Thank you for that. What a beautiful remark. We appreciate that. So it's good, Lois, for couples to spend time before they get into the marriage with the children of their prospective spouse. I think that's important, all right?
Yes.
And I think we got the answer for if my spouse hurts me, why should I show them kindness? We got that. We show them kindness because every day God does what? Show kindness to us. All right, awesome. All right. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you is a biblical concept spoken by Jesus in Luke chapter 6, verse 31, and Matthew, right? 7, verse 12. It's commonly referred to as the golden rule. All right, so is it important? Here's the question I'm asking. I want you guys to listen. Is it important to give the other spouse a taste of their own medicine at times? So, Lois, so what I'm asking, does giving the other a taste of their medicine brings it home to the other the importance of them not doing certain things?
No.
No, it's a question. Is there any
It
value
shouldn't
in
be.
giving the other person a taste?
No. it
Doing
shouldn't
unto
be.
them as they would do to you? Is that what the text is saying?
No, it's talking about kindness.
Kindness.
It's not talking about doing wrong to them.
Oh, so it's doing to them kindness. In other words, be kind to them because you want them to be
in turn
kind to you.
Be kind to you.
But my question is separate and independent of the golden rule.
Okay.
Is it important sometime to give a person a taste of their own medicine? And does that have its place in a relationship from time to time? Does it have its place?
That would cause other issues now because
Like?
then where do you draw the line? You know, when you're giving back to that person what they like giving them a lesson. I think that's why you communicate with the person. You let them know what they have done, but you don't go to the point now where you're trying to, do tit for tat. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, but in the Bible we see that happened all the time. It happens all the Haman. I can't remember this guy who dug a pit for someone and he fell in the pit himself. But what I'm saying, let me see
But
what.
that was because of his own doing, though.
But Ellie seems to put it right. It's only to make a point, but not revenge, and that's the point I'm trying to get
and
at.
where does that line end, though?
Oh, okay, it's
That's
okay
my
for,
point.
for God to give you a taste of your own medicine. Is it okay for God to give you a taste of your own medicine? Yeah, I think so.
Oh boy.
I think so. I think it's important sometimes to kind of show the person. I believe Ellie is right. It's okay. I think it's okay to make a point to show the person that, listen, hey, I did the same thing to you and you didn't like it. So why it is that you do that to me? I think if you're doing it for revenge, then it becomes skewed. But I
Well,
think
that's why there are murderers and all of that out there, you know,
okay.
because they have gone beyond. You know, our emotions are very delicate.
Okay.
And so we won't know how to manage it like God does. You know,
Okay.
we will go to extremes, and that's why women are abused, men are abused, people are dead today,
Right.
because they were upset about something and they were giving them a piece of their own mind,
And our taste of their own medicine.
right?
Right.
And then things have gone way out of proportion. So we have to be careful when we talk about giving people a taste of their medicine. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think it's a fine line. It's a thin line between love and hate. I
There
get
you
that.
go.
But I think that there's a space to sit down and talk about the things you do. And when I do that to you, you don't appreciate it. So I think that it's just a natural part of life for people to leave the toilet seat up and you like it closed. And, you know, you go back and just keep leaving it. You know what I mean? You close it or you do something that brings the person or jolts the person's mind to say, hey, it's not cool to do this. I don't think it's a matter of revenge. I think it's a matter of enlightenment. I think there are times, I'm not promoting be revengeful. Don't get me wrong. I'm not promoting go and hurt people because they hurt you. But I think there's a space in relationship to discuss. And sometimes to, by example, to leave something in a place where the other person don't like you to leave it, right? And, you know what I mean, say, okay, you don't like me to leave this here, yet still you leave this here. And I'm wondering, why do you do that? So sometimes it's important to flush out the duplicity, I think, in a relationship, but you have to do it in a very smart way. Make a point. Are you serious? Make a speech. Point when you are angry, and you will make the best speech you will. All right, let me reach out. Make a point. Are you serious? Make a speech.
I agree with that.
Point when you are angry, and you will make the best speech you will ever regret. Is that the hill you want to die on?
Right.
That's a teaching lesson.
Yes.
And I mean,
I agree.
I agree, Eddie. I get that,
Yes.
but I do believe that there is a space sometimes to entertain what the person does and what you do in comparison. I think we have to find a balance, though. I'm not saying do it in anger. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying do it in any vulgar way. I'm simply saying point out to the person, as Lorna said,
you
use it as a
communicate it.
teaching moment.
Yes.
Teaching
Yes.
moment. That's what I mean. Use it as a teaching moment. All right, so let me tell you guys something that my wife does, and it's a teaching moment for me. And so I have a way of, when I'll come to the room at night, and I will bring with me a cup of tea, and I will drink the tea and leave the cup on the bedside. What you call that stuff, Lois?
Bedside table.
The bedside table. And she would not pick it up. Right? Because that annoys her. It annoys her, and so she would leave it there.
For days.
Yes, and so for a day or two, or so, it will be just there. And she will not pick it up, and I think it's a teachable moment. Because now I've gotten to the point where, okay, she's not picking it up. So you know what? And somewhere deep down in me, I wanted her to pick it up if I forget. Because sometimes it's genuinely that I forget. But here's the deal. In her mind, you are doing this, and it's no good. So you need to do what? You need to fix it. So she used it as a what? A teachable moment. I think sometimes you can use certain things as a teachable moment to let the person know that it's not cool. And she doesn't do it in anger. She doesn't do it in any crazy way. She just simply said, okay, I'm showing you that you're doing this and it makes no sense. So I know you want me to take it up. Guess what? I'm not a maid and I'm not taking it up. And eventually, guess what? It comes home. And I receive that. And I'm like, okay, so now I make the effort. If I get a cup of tea, I get up there. I get up there and I did. Edward, not when you're angry. Wait until you calm down. If it is a couple of days. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Use it as a teachable moment. You don't want to die on an angry hill, but you want to use what the person is doing and use it as a teachable moment. And then you do it too. You put the cup down there and just put the cup there. Just like what Lois do, put the cup there. And they'll figure it out like, whoa. And you come, well, why did you? Well, you notice you leave the cup there all the time. I left it there, you know what I mean? Or I'm going to put another cup there or 2 more cups there. And then you come back and you see 4 cups there. No, but I didn't leave. I leave 1 cup here. I just put 4 more there. I use 1 and I put it there. Now you see how it look? You have 4 cups. I think you can use things as a teachable moment. That's what I think. Not on a hilltop, of anger. But when you calm down or when, the person can receive the message. I guess what I'm saying, you have to do things wisely. And as Lorna said, use it as a teachable moment. All right. A lot of couples are experiencing long-standing bitterness. This is a big deal in their relationships. How do we deal with that situation? And the reason why I brought that up is because if David had held a long-standing bitterness and it carried across the board, you understand, Lois? He would not have helped Mephibosheth. And I realized that there's a lot of couples who are dealing with long-standing bitterness against each other. Look at the picture. And they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know how to face it. They're struggling with it. Bitterness is the root of anger. It is the root of disfellowship. It is the root of hate. Bitterness is the root of emotional detachment. It's a psychological and emotional and sexual weapon that weaponizes the relationship to a point where there can be no marital harmony or no forgiveness. A lot of couples are experiencing long-standing bitterness. I'm so thankful that David was not a man who was dealing with long-standing, Lois, bitterness. And we have to find a way to deal, to disarm bitterness from our relationships, bitterness from the house of God, bitterness how we feel about that elder, bitterness how we feel about that brother in church, bitterness in our relationships. A lot of people are dealing with bitterness, all right? And we have to figure out how do we deal with bitterness. Lois, I'm even talking about the things that our spouse have done, that we never confessed it to them. We never talked about it. We never forgave them for it. We said we did, but we never. We said we did because we want to save face. We want to cry peace at the time. But that thing festered for what? Years and years and years. And it hurts. And it hurts like hell. How do we deal with bitterness between couples? And I know we're going to mask that and say God, but the fact is, a lot of couples are dealing with that right now, bitterness. Unresolved, Lois, bitterness that they have never resolved. How do they come to the point where they flush out that bitterness?
This is probably where they need a mediator or counselor to come in and to flush it out.
Right.
To go deep.
Right.
Sometimes you need that extra person to dig in the relationship, because at that point you don't want to go deep. You want to be at the surface because you're hurting, you're angry, you're bitter, and so a lot of times you don't want to face the things that have caused the relationship to get there.
Yeah.
So I believe at this point, this is where a good counselor comes in. And unbiased counselor.
You know what I think is one of the most deepest bitterness that a woman is when she's hurt by a man, when he leaves outside of the marital bed and have sex with someone. Or the woman find out later on down the line that he had sex with her friend, or, she found out that he has a child, you know, out of the marriage, that those kind of bitterness are serious and they're hard to overcome. I think that once a person violates the sexual space laws, it's very difficult to repair that. That bitterness can be insurmountable.
Yeah, and you have to be honest with yourself if you're willing to accept that.
Right.
Now, if you have said, okay, I forgive you, then you have to just let it go now.
You got to live forgiveness.
Yeah, you can't come back years later and say, oh, why did you do this to me?
Right.
You made the decision to stay.
Yeah, I think it's better that if the person has violated the relationship and you cannot deal with it, and you realize that this is too much for you to bear, I think you exit the door. It's sad that I'm saying this, but I think that staying in there and cannot let go off of your bitterness will do more damage to the relationship than good.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that you have to deal with, if you have to walk away for a while and, like you said, get counseling and really, express to that counselor.
Separation is good. In
those
times.
I think most relationships suffer from the bitterness of betrayal. What do you think? Betraying the other person with another woman or another man. I just cannot, the idea of just sleeping with someone who have opened up themselves to somebody else can be very, very mystical, and oh my goodness, I don't know. I think that is the deepest kind of betrayal that a woman can or a man can deal with. All right, so that's something for us to think about. All right, do you believe that a relationship can survive without the absence of loyalty? That's one question. Can a relation squeak by, Lois, without some level of loyalty? Is loyalty essential to the survival of a relationship? Infidelity breaks the trust in the relationship, yes, but if it breaks the trust in the relationship, can it survive? Can the relationship survive the infidelity? Can it survive? You know what I mean?
This one.
All right, Lois, we had this one now. Do you believe that relationships can survive without the absence of loyalty? That's one. And we underscore, Lois, the loyalty between Jonathan and David. That it was an outstanding loyalty. And it's one that really bonds them together. Loyalty is essential to every relationship. I'm going to move on because I know it's getting late. All right. Do you think that children will inherit how you have lived your life from generation to generation? And Lois and I thought about that question for the Bible study because we saw Mephibosheth benefiting from the way how Jonathan, his father's relationship with his father. And so we felt that was a fair question and a fair thing to contemplate, that as parents and as just people, God's children, we have to live good with one another, because we are passing a legacy to our children. And what Mephibosheth experienced was a legacy of what? Loyalty and what? Kindness.
Oh, yes.
So we thought that was important. So it's important for us to live a certain way so that our children can be benefactors of or beneficiaries. All right, here's a couple more questions I think is very important as a result of what I read in the Bible. When men are not seated at the table and contributing, loyalty is a covenant. It is the bridge to any relationship. Yes, thank you, Edward. It really is. Without that, Lois, the relationship is non-existent. Loyalty. I must have loyalty. When I have your back, you have mine. Right. And no matter what, we're going to step up for each other, and we don't throw each other under the bus. No matter what, we just don't throw each other on the bus. When men are not seated at the table, Lois, and contributing to the table, do you believe the woman lose respect for them? Now, explain what we mean by the table, Lois. How are we looking at the table? We're looking at the tables as what? Providing.
We're talking about the literal provisions now.
Right. And the reason why Lois and I came to this question was because we saw David as a what, Lois? He was a provider.
He was a provider.
Yeah. And we believe that men should be what?
Providers.
Providers.
It's
so
biblical.
Yeah, say that again.
It's biblical.
It's biblical that men should be provider. And so when men are not seated at the table, and we notice that when Mephibosheth was not at the table, he was very lame. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was very unproductive. But when he came to the table, we saw a change. So Lois and I talked about is the importance of men to take their rightful place at the table, contributing. The table here for us is provision. When Mephibosheth came to the table, he came to the table of what? Provision. David provided for him. David set an example that men ought to be what? Good what? Providers. And so when men are not seated at the table being good providers, I find that women lose respect for them. Does anyone agree with me? I think so, Lois. I think it's important for men to sit at the table where they are, and at the table too gives you a lot of respect in the woman's head.
Yeah.
And it gives you position. It gives you, what else, Lois? It gives you insight about how things are to be done.
Yes.
Yeah, it really does a lot of things, all right?
It does a lot for his own self-esteem.
And for the man's self-esteem too. I'm sure David was glad that he was able to provide for who? Mephibosheth. And not only
And his servants,
Mephibosheth,
too.
but Lois is providing for his entire family, right? It's very difficult for you to ask a woman to submit to you when you are not seated at the table. This is exactly what I wanted. This is exactly what I wanted to hear because, yeah, mercy. Yeah, I think this is exactly where I needed to go with this decision because a lot of men want submission, but they won't take their rightful place at the what? The table and be counted. I think, Lois, you correct me if I'm wrong, I think that provision is linked to a woman's sexual emotions too. Is that right? Like a woman will really hook you up when she know that you are a provider. Am I right?
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah, I think provision.
That's how God designed it to be.
Yeah.
So when men go against it and expect the woman to do everything,
right?
What do you expect?
Exactly.
It's just simple. 1 + 1 = 2.
No smashing if you can't provide.
Hello.
And we're not saying it's all about sex, but there's an emotional link there. I think there is an economical link. There is a spiritual link because Lois, you said it's biblical that a man should what? Be at the table providing. So it's emotional, it's sexual, it's biblical, and it's spiritual, and it's just the right thing to do. So yeah, Lois, we can conclude that a woman will have respect for a man when he's sit at the table. How important it is for a man to be a provider like David. That's kind of a spin-off. Yeah, so as you can see, I show a picture there. A woman loves to see a man going out and work. We've got to teach our sons the value of what? Working. We got to teach our men in the church the value of working. All right? It's very important. Well-rounded. Avril said the man must be well-rounded. Yes. And work must be a critical part of that, being well-rounded. All right, so Lois and I found out that there was a thing that we are developing called the dead dog theory. Edward, physical intimacy is the icing on the cake. You must provide the ingredients for the cake. Yes.
Amen.
Very good, sir. Could not have put it any better. Sex is a big part. Hugging is a big part. Bonding is a big part of that cake. You see what I'm saying? Going out to work is a big part of that cake. You see what I'm saying? And on the other side, the man coming home to a good dinner is a big part of the cake. Or coming home for the both of them, Lois, to cook the dinner. All right?
There you go. I like that one.
All right. So the dead dog theory. How do we deal with men that feel worthless? Remember that Mephibosheth felt what, Lois? Very what? Worthless. What do you do as a woman? Say that again?
He was very depressed.
He was very depressed. Yeah. And in a lot of relationships, women have to deal with depressed men. And depression sometimes excludes men from sitting at the table, from working, from being productive. So how does a woman deal with a man who is depressed and feel a sense of just being worthless. I mean, I think that woman is
Affirmation or encouragement, just daily expressing her love for that man,
and prayer,
and
lots
yes,
of praying.
prayer,
Yeah.
and even having other people praying for him,
For
you know,
him
like
too.
a prayer circle.
Yeah. And at times you have to point out that he is being worthless too. Well,
Yeah.
not that way. Sometimes you have
In
to,
a loving way.
in a loving way, push the door open. Is this how you're going to live your life? You know, the children need you. I need you. So there are ways that you have to really push that door open. And so as men, we have to stay away from the dead dog theory. Where we get that because Mephibosheth said, listen what he said. Mephibosheth bowed down and said, what is your servant that you should notice a dead dog like me? And that is in 2 Samuel chapter 9, verse 8. So we call that the dead dog theory. Yeah. We don't want to feel, as men, we should be careful and stay away from depression as much as possible. We don't want to sow into a state of what? Worthlessness. We want to have self-worth. And we find our self-worth in what? In God. Right? And a lot of times, Lois, men are coming out of fatherly relationships where they didn't have strong relationships with their fathers. And so that creates a sense of what? A sense of unworthiness, a father's love, a mother's love. There's a lot of dynamics that is associated with what? Worthlessness. And remember, with Mephibosheth, we have to conclude that he lost his mother and he lost his what? His father. So that could contribute to what? His sense of what? Unworthiness.
And he can't help himself.
And he
Some
cannot
people
help
have to
himself on
help
top
him
of
all
that.
the time.
Yes, he cannot help himself. So we see how certain conditions in life, Lois, can catapult men into a space of what? Unworthiness. He was depressed, but he was depressed because of his disability. Right. Yes. And so the point I'm making here, Juliet, is that there are issues sometimes that comes along and depress men. Sometimes it's not just disability, but sometimes it's daddy issues. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes it's women issues. Sometimes it's poor self-image issues. And it causes them to have a long-term disability. All right? So great, Lois. We have two more and then we're done. Two more and we'll be done. How should a woman deal with a man who's at a low point in their lives? How do we deal with men who are at very low points in their lives and those men cannot get up out of their low points? You come home every day to a woman or a man is just always low. What should you do when you're dealing with somebody who's at a very low point in life?
I think this is where the kindness really matters now. Because you cannot now attack him for being at that point in his life. That's not going to be the solution.
Right.
You know, so here is again where, you know, you're praying for him, you're encouraging him, you're having that conversation with him to, you know, get him out of that space that he's in.
Yeah.
You know, only God can help him at this point, and so you have to rely on him to
fix some of the stuff.
To help you guide him.
Yeah, I think that's really hard to deal with someone who is just really at a low point. And sometimes it has nothing to do with you. It's just things that person has masked before they met you. And, you know, sometimes you are, you know, on the front stage and you know, you can play the script well, but when the lights are off and you go backstage and you have to live with a person, you realize that this person really has a problem and you can't help them. Augment the positive. Avril said augment the positive. Yes, a lot of stuff like that has to happen. And pray with them a lot. And like you said, have people praying for them too. And identify people who they think a lot of too. You know what I mean? You know, set them up with a mentor, somebody who can, another man who probably have been through the same issues and learn, you know, and work through it through counseling and other areas, you know, that they're working through. And how long, you know, for how long? I mean, yeah, you know, that's a good question. How long can you deal with that? You know, but, you know, it's for better or for worse, Lois. So You know, you
Yeah.
can't get to the point where you
can't
kick
get
the
up and
person
say,
out.
oh, forget this.
Huh?
You can't run away from it.
Yeah, you can't run away from it.
Yeah.
You just have to
It's
guide the
hard,
person to that.
yeah.
It's called loyalty too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Encourage him, pray with him, and love him. I do
Yeah.
believe that what you said there, Elder Brown, is hitting the nail on the head.
There's one before it, that one.
Which one?
She
She
needs
needs support. She needs to support him. Sometimes a man wants to be the provider but can't find a job. That keeps him low, yeah. And there are okay, so what Ellie's pointing out is an external factors that are not, you know, internally based in terms of psychologically and emotionally based. There are external factors that keeps people at a low point. I think so, yeah, Ellie. Yes, Lois.
That's a good point. But the difference is you see the person trying to find a
Right.
job. It's different now when you don't see the person trying.
Exactly.
You know, they're just sitting home in the space of, you know, depression and, oh, I can't
Can't
find
do
a
this.
job.
Yeah.
But you don't see them actively looking for a job. That's
Right.
different. Yeah.
And let's face it, sometimes we marry people who don't have ambition. I mean, I hate to put it this way. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings out here, but I'm saying sometimes we get involved with people who have ambition issues. And that's the reality of life. And so, you know, you can't just run out of the marriage. You can't run out of the relationship.
Yeah.
You have to find a way now to deal with that. You know what I mean? You really have to. Then he can go learn a trade. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's where Ellie comes in saying, you know, you have to encourage him. You have to support him. Okay? All right. Is it important to feel accepted in a relationship when you're not pulling your weight? This is very important, Lois, because a lot of men and a lot of women, men especially, the problem is with men, right? They don't pull their weight. They depend on the women to do what? Take care of them. All right? So what do you do about someone being lazy and nonchalant? And that's it. Here we come. And I think it ties into this, Lois, pulling the weight issue.
Yes, it does.
It ties into this. What do you do with somebody who is nonchalant, right, and lazy? Because sometimes you marry people who are lazy. And this has been in their generational cycle. And it has materialized with you. Man, you pick this card off the deck. I mean, yes. You know, what's the worst card to pick off the deck again? I don't even remember. But sometimes you can pick the worst card out the deck. You know? And sometimes, remember, your spouse is your helper. If you are not giving her something to help you with, then she can help you. Wow. Wow, Lois. I mean, you got to come with something. I think that's what Eddie said. Let me read it again. Remember, your spouse, the person who you are with, is the Bible. That's your helper. If you're not giving her something to help you with, then she can't help you. Avril said no refund. And that's true. Some women can't. You know, I was watching something online, one of these thing in my feed, where this girl decided to take her boyfriend back to his ex and ask back for a refund. Everything that she spent on him, she wanted the ex to give her back. She said, listen, she's buyer's remorse. She took him back to her ex, and she had no problem with him going back to his ex-girlfriend because he could not help her. Lorna said, reshuffle. In other words, let's shuffle the deck again. In other words, put him back in and reshuffle. I mean, but these are real problems, Lois.
Yeah.
These are real problems. Getting people who are lazy, they don't want to do, as Avril says, what do you do about someone who is lazy and nonchalant? How do you work with a person like that? Well, Avril, you've gotten reshuffle. But I really, in all seriousness though, I think you have to confront that head on. I think that person needs counseling. What do you think, Lois?
Yes.
I think that person needs a sense of guidance. And you can't keep that between the both of you alone. That comes now,
needs
you know,
help.
Lois, you have to
Yes.
open the door to talk to professionals or people whom he thinks highly of, or mentors. I keep saying it. I mean, you have to seek help, Lois.
Oh, yeah.
That's, you know,
You
Lord,
can't help at this point. I
yeah,
don't
you
think.
cannot help that person at this point because that's an ingrown toenail right there.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything about that, you know. All right, our last question. I kept you guys so long today. I'm so sorry. Last question, and we going send him back. She said, send him back to mommy. Yeah, Juliet says send him back to mommy. You know, I mean, it's real. What do you do? And the reason why Lois and I came up with that is because we realized that Mephibosheth was at the table, still feeling sorry for himself, still feeling dejected. You know, and then look, Lois, we said to where he lived was a big deal. He lived in Lodebar. So he came to the table in a Lodebar mentality.
Yeah.
A lot of men come into a relationship in a Lodebar mentality. You know what I mean? I think people need to be more vocal with these individuals, such as family members, parents, and siblings. Yes. I agree, Avril.
Yes.
I agree. If you have to create the space that you can talk to him because we're family, that's what we're there for. Because sometimes I think people know, I think people act different when they know that family knows that they're doing what? Wrong. And sometimes Avril, I think, is opening in the door for what? Accountability? Yeah, I agree, Avril. You gotta take it out of the quiet, out of that sacred circle now, and bring it into the family circle. So we said the last question we thought about was, do anybody believe that Mephibosheth was lazy or was he just lame?
Lame.
Anybody? I need some answer. Was he just lazy or lame? Did he take his disability too far? You know, I guess those are some of the things we were thinking about. Lloyd said he believed that he was just lame and not lazy. Couldn't help himself.
And I just believe the environment that he was in did not
Facilitated
foster
that.
him. Yeah.
Oh, Lloyd, what a beautiful point, because notice that when he came in the environment of David, look what is happening to him. He's receiving. David is encouraging him. You remember, Lois? David is telling him, I'm at your service. You see what I'm saying? David said, Mephibosheth, at your service. He replied, David is saying, don't be afraid. David said to him, for I will surely show you what? Kindness. Look at that. You know, for the sake of your father, I will restore. So David started to speak positivity over his life. Am I right about it, Lois? You belong to someone I love.
Yes.
Look at what David is saying. You can eat at my table. And when he started to receive all these things. Yes, acceptance. Look what is happening to him. Now somebody's not speaking to him in a space called Lodebar. He's speaking to him now in a man's perspective. Look at me as a man. I'm going to help you to get over this. I'm going to give you what you deserve. You see what I'm saying? I'm going to work with you. And look how it changed his life. I want to show you something here, Lois. Mephibosheth had a young son. He got to the point where he could love a woman again.
Yeah.
He got to the point where he had children. Now he was ready to take on children.
Line.
Yes. Mercy.
Yes.
So where we are is vital and important. Eddie said, listen, a person who is lazy and nonchalant showed his laziness while dating. The problem is most women are very good at, as collecting red flags. Wow. This was one collected and overlooked. And Eddie raised a very important conversational line here, or thread here, Lois, is that a lot of times women fail to overlook. I mean, no, they overlook things because
they believe they can fix it.
Because they can fix it.
Yeah.
Or they think their biological clock is ticking, or they believe that
they can
the man will change.
Yeah.
Yeah, the man will change. Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal.
It's not that big of a deal. He'll work out of it.
Yeah.
And they step over it. They keep passing that. But I like how the way Eddie put it. You know, a person who is lazy must have shown that somewhere in the relationship, in the dating process. And the woman either missed it or she closed her eyes to it. All the time that is the case. Not at all times. Let me see what Avril is saying. At all the time. Is that what she said?
Yeah, she corrected it. It is
This
not,
is not
all
the case.
time.
All right, it's not the case all the time, and that's true. Some person become, people become, yes,
too comfortable.
So yeah, there is two sides to the coin, Avril. Great. Sometimes people become comfortable, yes, and sometimes women tend to overlook it, right? So we have to be very, very. So what this says, Lois, in a relationship, a woman who would see Mephibosheth before David take him up, as opposed to a woman who would see him before David take him up. So the one who see him before David take him up should run. Right? Because he's in a place where he's really...
I don't think he was in a place where any woman would see him. That's the point.
Wow. He's not in a place where any woman would see him. Because of where he is mentally.
Yes, and physically.
So when he got with David and the transformation took place, now he's in a space where a woman can see him and say, you know what, I'm willing to even have your child.
Yes.
Mercy. Eddie said, Avril Mark, this is true, my friend, and it's so true. It's true, Lois. Yeah. I mean, this was a powerful discussion. Folks, we have come to the end of our Bible study. This is such a powerful expression of community as we discuss issues relating to our relationships with one another. And that's what I try to do. I try to use the Word of God to paint it a different way, to bring out things of substance, things emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, and economically that I think that can have a profound impact on the way how we conduct relationship on a day-to-day basis. I really want to thank you guys for joining in the conversation today, for joining in the Bible study. I hope that this has been a blessing to all of you. We look forward to see you next week, right, Lois? Next week again, same time, same place. Absolutely. We had some technical issues, so our Bible study went over a little longer than usual. But we hope that you will show some kindness and loyalty and overlook what happened and come back next week.
Praise the Lord.
I hope so. We love you. We thank you for joining us. We thank you for making this Bible study what it is. We would ask that you will just click what? Like and share. Share this Bible study with someone. I'm telling you, people can be blessed for it. Our people will be blessed because of it. All right? We love you. God bless you. Thanks for joining us. Grace Advent Ministry and Word from the Cross Bible study. We love you. Let's pray. Lois, why don't you pray, Lois, to just close out? I've never asked you to pray. There's a first for everything. Go ahead.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the time spent this afternoon diving into the words that you have for us. We thank you for all the things that we have learned. The importance of kindness, the importance of sitting at the table that you have prepared for us. Dear God, help us to be the sons and daughters that you have called us to be loving to one another, to show kindness. Help us to work on the issues that we have between each other, whether it be in a marital relationship or just a brotherly relationship. Whatever relationship we find ourselves in, help us to be able to sit at that table and converse and to be able to show love and kindness to one another. I thank you so much for everyone that took the time to be on this program today. I hope that they were blessed and that you were able to show up for them in their lives. May this help each one of us to live better with each other and with our loved ones. Thank you for being so kind to us, for loving us, and for showing us the way, dear Jesus. Continue to watch over us and continue to guide us throughout the rest of tonight. And may you continue to be with us as we continue to do our part here in this world, dear God, until you come. This is my prayer in your name. Amen.
Amen and amen. Thank you guys for joining. You have been watching Words from the Cross Bible Study brought to you by Grace Advent Ministry. Remember to come back next week, same time, same place. Until then, stay safe. We love you. God bless you.